Welcome into Casualty Connect, our video series on the use of AI in the P&C industry. I am Frank Giaoui, the CEO and co-founder of Optimalex, and today our guest speaker is Franco DiDuca, Head of Claims at Providence Mutual. Hi, Franco, and welcome.
Hi, Frank. Thanks for having me. Very excited to participate and chat about all of this stuff. I think we're both passionate about it and should be a great conversation.
Thank you for being with us. Franco, you have a long experience in claims, and we'll come back to that in a minute. Would you like to introduce maybe your business lines at Providence Mutual before we start into the main subject?
Sure. So at Providence Mutual, we write we write auto and property, although we are moving away from auto and really will be a property focused carrier. Within property, we write business owner policies, so BOP policies, homeowner policies, and dwelling policies. And again, with all of three of those lines of business, you have both the first party, property damages, and you also have the liability coverage that are associated with those.
Okay, well, thank you. So the subject of our discussion today will be driving smarter claims outcomes, predictive analytics for expense and indemnity management. Now, in terms of introduction in general, what are to you the main use cases for predictive analytics in the context of expense and indemnity management in general?
Well, so I think, I think what we try to do is use data models to forecast claim costs, right? So the idea is what are these claims going to cost and how can we model that? And on both the indemnity and the expense side. I think in addition, we want to use data models to identify potential large losses, right, as early as possible to help direct action plans and strategy around those large losses. Operationally, we want these sort of predictive analytics to help us better use our resources, right? So how do we direct these certain types of claims to the best individuals to handle those claims? So matching talent to task, right? That's something that predictive analytics can help us with. And then finally, I think it's using the predictive analytics to create consistency in outcomes. So I think, when you have the predictive analytics that allow you to understand how certain claims act, it gives you a lot of confidence in that consistency and understanding, what types of claims develop into certain types of claims.
All right. So you mentioned the timeliness, the early triage, consistency, of course, and eventually accuracy of the reserve or any decision as much as possible. So let's transition now to more specific use cases on litigation and indemnity. How are carriers using predictive analytics today to control the specific question of litigation and expense costs in your experience?
Well, so I think number one, it's helping with identification, right? So the idea is one, flagging, attorney represented claims that are likely to escalate into litigation. So predicting what cases are going to go into litigation, and that from the outset, as early as you can do that, if you can identify the variables that drive those claims as early as possible, you can build strategies that help mitigate both the indemnity side and the expense cost ultimately associated with litigation. So you've got that predictive piece around what goes into litigation. I think the other part is once you're in litigation, what's the trade-off for continuing to defend a case versus what the value of that case is, right? And so predictive analytics can really dig into and provide, I think, a lot of advice and information about what is that point where you make that decision to say the cost is outpacing the value, and knowing that as soon as possible or as early as you can in a case can really impact your outcomes. And then I think, the other part is again, I go back to, I talked before about operational use for predictive analytics. In litigation, there's also the component around who do you assign to handle certain cases, right? What defense counsel, what vendor partner is the right partner for a certain type of case? And again, predictive analytics can identify the variables that help you best predict who the best partner is for any particular case.
Yeah. You kind of anticipated my next question because I was going to ask you more specifically in terms of indemnity management, where can predictive tools make the biggest impact? Anything you want to add on this subject?
Yeah, so again, I mean, I would reiterate the idea that predictive analytics, when it can identify the variables, right, that as early as possible, the variables that um, adversely impact the indemnity across time, right? That's going to give you the ability to make decisions faster. So, sometimes, even in cases that predictive analytics might identify as something that's going to adversely react or adversely change. I think it's, you still may not change your strategy, but the idea that you have that information available to you, is tremendously important. And then the other piece I think, and you and I have talked about this, I think plenty of times in the past, nuclear verdicts, right?
Oh,
You
yeah,
know, knowing and understanding again the components of damages and the components of liability, right? And what variables lead to or tend to lead to nuclear verdicts again is massively helpful in building a strategy around how a claim is going to be handled.
right. So let's be honest. AI and predictive analytics are renewed and have become very popular in the discussions. Although there are also many resistance and roadblocks to implementing predictive analytics in a traditional claims operation. Can you start describing those roadblocks?
Yeah, so I think at the end of the day, there are some true roadblocks and there are some perceived roadblocks, right? And so one sort of just general comment I would make is trying to navigate the perceived roadblocks. And I think that's, sometimes it's you're fighting against something that's not really there. And and so understanding that and being able to talk about that in terms of why something isn't really a roadblock is important. But I think that sort of leads me to our adjusters, right? To them, they hear about AI and they think it's going to take my job. They think it's going to replace everything that I do. And again, most of the people that are on the front lines of the AI movement, including you guys, recognize that there's never going to be AI is not going, especially in the space of casualty claims and these types of losses. It's not there. It's not going to replace individuals. You still need individual review and analysis, but it's there. It's really there to enhance the decision-making process and to provide valuable information and inputs to help develop a positive outcome or output, right? And so I think that's the first piece is telling our folks like this isn't here to replace you. It's here to enable you and to help you eliminate some of the pieces that of your job that can be done separately. And so I think that's one piece. And then just quickly, systems, right? I can tell you at Providence Mutual, we've got some legacy systems here that have constraints. But I think again, you know, certainly vendors like you guys, you've plugged into plenty of systems. And so, building those connections and those APIs, maybe 5 years ago, 10 years ago was more difficult. But I think that 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 sort of roadblock has become less impactful. That doesn't mean that it's completely gone. I'm sure there's some systems out there that are still, roadblocks, but for the most part, I think, the connection is there. The question, the sort of second piece to that is how good is the data
Right.
and how much do you have? And so, again, being a smaller carrier like Providence Mutual, we don't have 10 million claims, to sort of historical claims to build our models on. And so there's always going to be a little bit of um, customization by customer, right? So each customer is going to have their own sort of data, roadblocks. But again, at the end of the day, carriers, if you capture good data, you'll be able to utilize, the predictive analytics.
Yeah, I think you said something which is very important about the change management. What we used to say at Optimalex is that we are a low risk change management tool. We are just offering a tool, a decision support tool. So of course, the objective is to improve efficiency, to improve consistency, as you said, but it never replaces really human expertise. It codifies human expertise. It helps transition to the next generation. All the technical side that you mentioned, the systems lacking data integration or the siloed operations with different data structuring, this can be solved by technology. But technology will never replace leadership. So coming back to the change management and the leadership, you start with identifying the business issue, right? It's not a technical issue, it's a business issue. Do you want to improve timeliness? Do you want to improve the triage? Do you want to improve maybe the panel of your lawyers and the allocation between them? How do you approach change management when introducing analytics into claims operations?
Yeah, so I love the point you just made about, you know, problem identifying the problem, right, that you're trying to solve. Because I think a lot of times people think they just say AI, it's going to solve the problem, right? Like on its own, it understands everything and is going to, like you need to know what you're trying to solve. And ideally you want to try to solve all of the sort of issues that you brought up, but you can't, some carriers or some companies may choose to do it all at once. Providence Mutual, we likely aren't going to be able to do that. We've got to pick and choose the things that we want to solve first and prioritize. But the idea is once you've done that, right? Once you've decided these are the priorities, this is the problem that we're trying to solve. Now, how do we collaborate with our team and bring them into the fold and make sure that they buy into this decision? And I think it's there are a number of different ways to do that. But some of it is really just one is reassurance, right? This is not meant to replace you. This is a tool for you. This is support for you. It's doing things that you already to a certain degree do yourself, but faster and with more information, right? You have people that have been doing this for 25 years. They've identified variables in their mind that when a claim comes across their desk, they say, these are the five variables that I look for to identify, what the value of this case might be, right? And AI is doing that at a much higher level with more data and maybe a little bit more accuracy. But the idea is that, it can help you by producing information to you that might take you a little more, if you've got 500 pages to read to get to all the variables that you in your mind have come across, that tool can give you that information, at the snap of a finger. And so, having that's your support network. That's your, you can now, really focus on the things that make you unique to doing your job. And so that's the first piece is that support and reassurance to folks that it's a tool. I think again, it's transparency. Hey guys, this is what we're looking to do. Not when we're implementing it, but plenty, plenty of lead time for the teams to understand this is our plan. This is what we're trying to solve. Let's talk about how we're going to do it, and it's going to involve some of these other components. Um, and then I think it's, and you and I have talked about this, and haven't quite got there yet, but pilot programs, right? And piloting different capabilities is another place that I think really helps with change management, especially around the idea that we're asking them to trust us, but we're giving them the opportunity to verify it, right? It's that sort of trust but verify philosophy where, guys, this is not going to replace you. This is a tool to help you. Now, here you go. Play with it, and see how it helps you. So I think, it's all about connection and all about transparency and communication. And I think as long as, you're open with that, with those types of interactions, you can be successful in implementing predictive analytics.
Yeah, so in our experience at Optimalex, whenever there is the will at the leadership level, be it the CEO, the C-suite, the chief claim officer, depending on the size of the company, then we always find a certain proportion, let's say, of the team in the claims operations that are really resisting. But you will always find also a couple of more open-minded and maybe even bullish participants to the program. And with those, you can build quick wins. And
Yeah.
with the quick wins, others will be interested. They will use a little bit more the system. Progressively, as you said, you have a plan. And by themselves, they will love it more and more. They will learn to domesticate the system essentially and make it their own AI assistant, not the other way around. So, I
I
mean,
agree. So yeah, I was going to say to you, I think what you're talking about is creating that champion, right? The champion of
right.
that change.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad you brought that up because I think that is absolutely a critical piece to any sort of implementation of predictive analytics. Is you got to find the people that are interested and curious about how things work and open to using new novel approaches and tools, and they will become those champions, and other people will listen to them and will follow them. So 100% agree with you.
Yeah, exactly. So this is low risk change management, but it starts progressively, of course. So, as a conclusion, what general advice would you give to carriers just beginning their journey with predictive analytics in claims?
So I think I would go back to, a few minutes ago, we talked a little bit about identifying the problem, right? And sometimes I think when people start out with sort of that idea of let's identify the problem, well, the problem is we're not sophisticated enough. Well, that's too big of a problem, right? Like it's too broad, right? So focus on maybe starting small, right? Focus on let me, there could be seven problems that we need to solve. Let's pick one. And maybe it's not the most impactful because you're not sure about how things are going to play out. So you pick something that, is maybe quick and easy to implement, and to your point, you get those quick wins, you establish some champions, and you build momentum. So I think starting small is critical. I think you also want to build cross-functional teams if you can, right? Again, depending upon your size and what resources you have, but at the end of the day, AI strategy isn't just a claim strategy. It isn't just an IT strategy. It isn't just a finance strategy, right? It's a corporate or company strategy. And so I think that you need to have the voices from some of these other groups in the discussions because they bring valuable experience around how predictive analytics or AI interacts across multiple departments. So cross functionality is a huge piece. And then again, you heard me talk about it a couple of times, but data quality. I think understanding, what the state of your data is really important, and understanding if there's gaps, because again, the model is going to only, to a certain degree, is only going to be as good as the information you feed to it, right? It can't, if you give it all these different gaps, it's tough to, one, it's just not gonna, it may not work as well, right? Or you may not have as high a confidence level in it. So data quality, I think, is massively important. So those three things.
Yes, thank you. May I add the results? Because 3 years ago, when the popular side of AI appeared, it was still very early stage. Several proof of concept were launched, Today, we are really past the stage of proof of concept, and some concrete results can be measured. So it's important for everyone to be interested into, of course, measuring the results, iterating the experience. So, for instance, low-hanging fruits first, and then a little bit more challenging issues, and expand based on these results. In our experience, the leadership will support the results when they see a return on investment. And this is a virtuous circle because they will incentivize their team will be motivated and will love more the system, the results will come even further, and so on and so forth. So my main point in this conclusion, if I may, is always measure results, check the return on investment. We are really past the proof of concept. Well, thank you very much, Franco. Franco DiDuca, our guest speaker today, is the head of claims at Providence Mutual. And I'm Frank Giaoui, CEO and co-founder of Optimalex. That's our video series Casualty Connect. And thank you, and we'll see you soon for the next series. Bye-bye.